To those across-the-board tariffs and how they're going to directly impact your wallet. Economists already warning that the move will have a negative effect on American businesses, including home construction, furniture. The National Association of Home Builders issuing a warning on that, saying overall Canadian lumber tariffs will rise nearly 40%. That's eventually harming housing affordability. With that, let's bring in the president and chief executive officer for the National Association of Home Builders, James Tobin. James, thank you so much for being with us. More than 70% of imports of two essential home building materials come from Canada and Mexico. Can you walk us through what they are and just how much they are used in the home building process?
Sure. First off, it's about sawmill production. It's about lumber, obviously cutting timber both from U.S. forest and Canadian forest, all combined, bring us the lumber that we need to build homes, whether it's framing or sheathing. It's a critical component to home construction. And then there's gypsum, which makes up your wallboard, your drywall. That's another huge component in home construction. Between those two, you're talking about 70% of the costs are associated with those two products come directly from Canada and Mexico.
Well, here's a statement from the chairman of your organization, Carl Harris. He said, quote, on President Trump's first day in office, he issued an executive order directing departments and agencies to deliver emergency price relief by pursuing actions to lower the cost of housing and then increase housing supply. This move to raise tariffs by 25% on Canadian and Mexican goods will have the opposite effects. Can you walk us through how a 25% tariff on softwood lumber turns into an overhaul rise of nearly 40%? How does the math work on that?
Sure. You have to remember, President Trump ran on big issues during the campaign. He ran on tariffs, he ran on immigration, but he also ran on housing affordability and more importantly, building more housing to combat the affordability crisis we have in this country. When we look at lumber in particular, Canada is our number one trading partner when it comes to lumber. About 30% of our lumber used in home building comes from Canada. There's currently about a 15% tariff already on Canadian lumber. When you add on this new 25% tariff, now we're looking at a 40% price increase. And there's even chance that over the summer, as we move into the building, fully into the building season, additional costs may go up. We could look at 50 or 55% to the cost of any stick of lumber coming into this country from Canada. So it's going to have a significant impact on home construction. In fact, we just saw today that futures for lumber at their highest point since the election. So the volatility is already starting to take place in that market.
Ready. And you once said that your organization's members were feeling, quote, cautious optimism about the president's background and that he would follow through on its deregulation, other developer-friendly policy promises. Do you still feel the same about the president?
Well, the president said that there is going to be some short-term pain when it comes to the tariffs, perhaps, and I think we're starting to see that. But we're also taking the long-term view as well. While we continue to engage with the administration about the impacts these tariffs are going to have on home construction, we're also looking to see what's coming next. There's a large tax bill that the president will move through Congress. We're also looking at that deregulatory aspect where we could see a lowering of some of the regulatory burdens that will help reduce the cost on housing as well. So we need to kind of pace ourselves. We're in week 3 of the Trump administration. Again, this is hopefully a short-term blip, but we're also going to wait and see how the whole package turns out over the course of the next several months.
All right, so that's the the CEO or president of the National Association of Home Builders. And again, he confirmed what I said in the previous videos about these tariffs and when it comes to how that will impact home prices, in the near future. Again, it's a double whammy, right? You have the cheap labor out of here, right? And then you have these, and they paused these tariffs for 30 days to negotiate with Canada. Now, even if the tariffs don't get implemented and the price of lumber stays the same, we are still going to have the same effect with the increase in home prices. The reason why is because the cheap labor is gone. So they are going to have to hire, obviously, American people to do the labor, and they're going to have to pay more. So no matter how you slice it, these builders are going to have to put money out in order to keep the money coming in, i.e. continue to build, right? So Either way, the building process is going to slow down while they figure this out. And while they implement the changes that they have to implement. Now what will end up happening is people will start, or could possibly start, to shift from new builds and go towards existing build, right? Where, what they consider starter homes, or maybe homes that are 4 years old, 5 years old, right? And that's going to bring in more competition, right? More competition, not enough supply, and that causes price to go up also, right? Now, a lot of people seem to think that just because homes aren't moving as fast, or if homes are slightly coming down in their market, that there's going to be a market crash, right? And it's actually deeper than that, right? People are looking for a 50-state crash like we saw during 2008. The reason why we had a crash in 2008 was because the banks gave everybody in all 50 states these bad loans, right? So everybody, you had these mass defaults, and then you had all of these properties hit the market at the same time, where you had way more supply than you had buyers. Then you had the supply fighting for the little bit of buyers. I'll lower my price even more. That's what caused the crash previously, right? But this time, the majority of housing markets have a shortage, and you have buyers still buying. Now, every winter we have something called a correction, right? Where, nobody really wants to buy like that during the wintertime because it's cold outside. Who wants to move in the cold? So you have sellers that are willing to be more flexible, right? Where they'll say, okay, well, I'll cut my price, or I'll give seller help, or I'll do this, or, our homes may be on the market longer. We get that every winter. Now, I think this winter is slightly different. It seems like there are more buyers out here, especially in my market. But like I said, each market is different. The market in DC is different than the market in Baltimore, and it's different than the market in, certain other parts of Maryland, right? In Baltimore, a lot of the homes are sitting. Baltimore is going through a transition, the same transition that we saw DC go through, right? So in the future, I think Baltimore will be a very competitive market. Now, even in Baltimore City, right, there are certain areas that are really, really competitive, depending on the area. But then there are others where the homes are sitting longer. Does that mean a crash? No. Again, it's a correction. You're going to have more people run out during the spring and the summer months. But let's check out what Redfin said. So Redfin put out this stat, to the 2025 housing market predictions. Number one, U.S. home prices will rise 4% year over year as buyers outnumber sellers. Certain markets may see prices fall or rise further. 2, mortgage rates are likely to remain in the high 6 range. I talked about this. I have buyers that are getting mid 6, low 6, high 6. Mortgage rates fluctuate every day with the bond market. Now, in reference to the mortgage rates, I actually just got this email from a lender and I had to respond and say, hey, is this 30-year fixed? He said, yes. Look at this, 5.99, 5.875, 5.9, 5.875, FHA 3.5% down, full documents, primary residence purchase, 700 plus FICO, single family or condo. Now, this is exactly what I'm referring to. Mortgage rates starting to come down. So, obviously, you have lenders that can get cheaper rates than others, but this is an example of what will contribute to a reverse real estate market crash. Number 3, home sales will increase between 2% and 9% next year due to pent-up demand. Like I've said previously, there are people that want to buy, but you have some people that, are waiting for interest rates to fall. And then you have others that can't find a home. Like I have buyers right now that have been putting in offers, but because of the type of programs or loans that they have, some people in some markets, some areas, people are still overbidding, over list, right? And then number 4, more housing will be built, ultimately improving rental and home affordability. And that part, number 4, is going to be a challenge because, again, of the labor. And if Canada and the United States cannot come to some, compromise, then, more homes won't be built, right? And then we'll start seeing all over again. We have this housing shortage because new homes can't be built. And then you have sellers that are sitting on the sideline saying, hey, why would I get rid of my 3% and, sell my home and then have to pick up a 6%? That's double the amount of interest, right? So you also have that going on. So the majority of the sellers that are selling are the ones that have to sell. Maybe they got a new job in a different state, or maybe they're trying to downsize, right? So that is what's keeping the supply very low versus the demand, where rent is high, and you have people that saying, hey, why am I paying this high rent when I could just buy a home and at least I'll be building equity, or at least I'll own it, right? So there are a lot more factors involved than just your local market being slow. Like, there are a lot of slow markets. I had a client that just closed. They got a house, $75,000 off the appraisal, and that was St. Mary's County, Maryland. That's a rural area. It's not like people are fighting to move into that rural area because there aren't even really that many jobs out there. They just happen to say, hey, I don't have a problem driving to DC every day, which is crazy to me, but okay. They were able to get a big home, and they have, $75,000 in equity, right? Because they chose to move to that area. In the future, that may change. We don't really know. They're starting to build a lot in the St. Mary's area, but we'll see what happens, right? So there are a lot of factors that go into it, and I'm staying in my stance. We're going to see a reverse housing crash where we're going to have a large move up, especially if this labor situation doesn't get solved. It's going to cost these builders a lot more, and these builders run like any other company. They have to satisfy their shareholders. They're going to pass that cost on to the consumer. And here's the other thing. Regardless of what happens, people are going to continue to buy homes, regardless of what happens, because people have to have somewhere to live. And if rent is high, people are looking at it saying, pay this much in rent, pay this much to own a home. Some people say, hey, you know what? I'll just go ahead and just own the thing, right? So, we'll see what happens in the spring market and see if these tariffs actually get, stuck. Shout out to Diamond Dave, but, it looks like a lot of this is over drug trade. Trump really wants the drugs to stop coming in from Canada and from Mexico. But, it just so happens this real estate is going to be collateral damage. And he mentioned short-term pain, like short-term could be a year, 2 years, 3 years, but that's enough, like how we saw during COVID. It doesn't take long, right? When you have these mortgage rates falling, it doesn't take long. It took COVID, during COVID, it took a year for housing prices to increase 14%. It took 1 year. So, even if we only get a percentage raise in 1 year or year and a half, 2 years of 9%, that's still a reverse market crash. The market is crashing up when in reality, the average increase is like 2 to 4% per year. So a 9% increase is still a sharp move up. OK, so I just wanted to just show you all this and show you that this thing is real and it's going to get competitive out there, especially if we continue to see the bond market change and continue to see the government buying bonds. If they buy bonds and, see the mortgage rates come down, people are going to be out here buying homes just like they are now. Believe it or not, even though we were in the 7.2% range, people were still buying homes. Homes are still getting multiple offers in most markets. So, but yeah, the only thing that we can do is plan accordingly around what's going on. Be proactive and not reactive, right? Measure twice, cut once. Let's get this money.